music and try listening to rock. It was impossible not to listen to rock when they were growing up, but it was possible for me. It was possible for me, as it was for many parents of my generation, not to hear it. On that evening, I did hear it. It was for me a rhythmic implosion, a fascinating new musical experience. It was the opening of a new, it was the opening of new musical vistas, which I have, with the help of my sons, continued to explore to this very day. A year later, I related this story to John Lennon and Yoko Ono, with whom I was having dinner. Now, I was having dinner with them because I was to appear the next day as an expert witness at the Immigration and Naturalization Service hearings that Attorney General John Mitchell had engineered as a way of getting them out of the country after they, on marijuana charges, after they had become involved in anti-Vietnam War activities. I told John of this experience and how cannabis appeared to make it possible for me to hear his music for the first time, in much the same way that Allen Ginsberg reported in 1967 or 68 in the Atlantic Monthly, reported that he had seen Cézanne for the first time when he purposely smoked cannabis before setting out for the Museum of Modern Art. John was quick to reply that I experienced only one facet of what marijuana could do for music, that he thought it could be very helpful for composing and making music as well as listening to it. Now, in my next recollection of that evening, Betsy and I and another couple were standing in the kitchen in a circle, each of us taking bites out of a Napoleon. There was much hilarity as each bite forced the viscous material between the layers to move laterally and threatened to drip on the floor and had to grab it. It seemed a riotous way to share a Napoleon, but the most memorable part of the kitchen experience was the taste of the Napoleon. None of us had ever in our whole lives eaten such an exquisite Napoleon. Mary, where in the world did you find these Napoleons? Oh, I've had their Napoleons before and they never tasted like this. It was gradually dawning on me that something unusual was happening. Could it be that we were experiencing our first cannabis high? We drove home very cautiously. In fact, one of the observations I made on the way home was how comfortable I, a habitual turnpike left laner, was in the right lane with all those cars. It seemed like a very long time before we arrived home. Not that we were in a rush, the ride was very pleasant. Time passed even more slowly between our arrival and our going to bed. But once we did, we knew with certainty that we had finally been able to achieve a marijuana high. And that marked the beginning of the experiential facet of my cannabis era, a development that furthered my education about the many uses of this remarkable drug. Now, I was 44 years old in 1972 when I experienced this first marijuana high. Because I have found it both so useful and benign, I have used it ever since. I have used it as a recreational drug, as a medicine, and as an enhancer of some capacities. Almost everyone knows something about its usefulness as a recreational substance. Growing numbers of people are becoming familiar with its medical utility, but only practiced cannabis users appreciate some of the other ways in which it can be useful. Not those people who quit, They don't quit if they discover some of the things I've discovered. But anyway. But I suspect I'm not the only one in this room who's discovered it. Excuse me. It has been so useful to me that I cannot help but wonder how much difference it would have made. It might have, how much difference it would have made had I begun to use it at a younger age. Because it has been so helpful in arriving at some important decisions and understandings, it is tempting to think that it might have helped me to avoid some before cannabis era bad decisions. In fact, now, when I have an important problem to solve, decision to make, I invariably avail myself of the opportunity to think about it both stoned and straight. I cannot possibly convey the breadth of things it helps me to appreciate, to think about, to gain new insights into. But I would like to share several not too personal instances. For example, let me tell you about the worst career choice I have ever made. It was my decision to apply to the Boston Psychoanalytic Institute as a candidate for training in psychoanalysis. I began this training, which was enormously costly both in time and money, in 1960, and graduated 7 years later. Although I developed some skepticism about certain facets, it was not until about the mid-70s that my emerging skepticism about the therapeutic effectiveness of psychoanalysis began to get uncomfortable. This discomfort was catalyzed by cannabis. On those evenings when I smoke marijuana, it provides, among other things, an invitation to review significant ideas, events, and interactions of the day. My work with patients is of psychoanalytic. It was not until about the mid-70s that my emerging skepticism about the therapy.
Stop the bullshit, stop the lies. Now's the time to legalize. Tell me, brother, tell me true. What the hell we gonna do? Remember the days we saw purple haze. 1 and 1 is 3. Hey, hey, baby, what you do to me? We so happy, we alive, we together can survive. Mother Nature, heaven sent, don't belong to government. Hey there, sister, what's the plan? Do you really?
It was me, I couldn't make it work, but all those other guys could, and I should continue to support psychoanalysis. But eventually as you'll see in the full text of the paper, if you're interested, I changed my mind about that. The subsequent decision to resign from the Boston Psychoanalytic Institute was very difficult. A little like deciding to get a divorce after more than a decade of marriage. But I have no doubt that it was the only way I could deal with this growing discomfort and rectify what was now clearly seen as a mistake. Some of my former psychoanalyst colleagues might believe, among other things, that I had merely traded my involvement in what I considered a macro-delusional system for immersion in an inverse micro-version. Such a possibility notwithstanding, I am indebted to cannabis for the help it provided me in achieving